If you can hear this crowd right now, they are going nuts.
Over the years, we've seen many great riders retire from the sport. Sometimes everything works out just right and a rider gets to go out on top. We saw Ricky Carmichael win his last 6 professional motocross races as well as Motocross of Nations to finish off his career. Ryan Villopoto won his last 4 Supercross races before retiring from American racing.
I mean, yeah, he's the champ. He's got the #1 plate 4 times in a row. This is obviously what the best rider in the world looks like in his prime right now.
And here he comes. Ryan Villopoto will win Las Vegas.
But I think that we can all agree that we have never seen anything quite like what Jeremy Martin did. But like any story with a great ending, to truly do it justice, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. In this video, we're going to go all the way back to 2012 at the debut of Jeremy Martin's professional career, and then we'll work our way through all the highs and lows, the ups and downs, in what is a truly incredible story with an absolutely spectacular ending. Alright, so the year is 2012. Jeremy Martin has signed with Star Yamaha and he's making his pro debut at Unadilla. There was a few other rookies in the field as well. A lot of guys tend to go pro around this time after Loretta's, but it wouldn't take long for us to see Jeremy Martin in the pro class. He got off to a relatively good start in Moto #1, and we got to see what it looks like to see him run up front.
We got another rookie in his pro debut today. That is Jeremy Martin on the Star Racing Yamaha. He was 7th early, but then he would have a crash.
He did end up having some issues and going down. He still managed to score points in the first moto with an 18th, but then he came home in 27th in Moto 2, which gave him a 23rd place overall finish. He would finish off the final 2 rounds of the series with an 11th at Steel City and a 9th at Lake Elsinore, finishing off pretty strong with a few flashes. With that, Jeremy would head into the offseason with a little bit of confidence as well as some things to work on, as well as shift his focus to his Supercross debut. Going into the 2013 Supercross season, there was a bit of hype around Jeremy Martin to see what he could do in Supercross. Granted, there was only a small sample size from the motocross season the year before, but we did see him finish off the season with 2 top 10 finishes even though he was battling some injuries. And sure enough, Jeremy delivered on that hype. He came out at round #1 with a 5th place in Atlanta, then he backed that up with another top 5 in St. Louis, and then we went to Daytona. Unlike Marvin Musquin's incredible start, Jeremy Martin got off to his typical mid-pack start, but he had started to build some confidence because he hadn't gotten really any good starts so far this season, and he was still able to finish in the top 5. At this time, the main events were still based off of laps, and with Daytona having a much longer lap time, this race in particular was quite a bit longer than all the other Supercross races.
There's the rookie Martin on the Yamaha, number 77.
At the time, Jeremy was working with the Carmichaels, riding and training out at the goat farm, and they specifically highlighted this race for him as a chance to use the fitness that he has to his advantage and really push forward as the race went on.
Quick work of him here in the main event. Looking to go. He's had a string of top 5s. Atlanta, St. Louis. Now he's just went into the 4th position, given by Peters, so maybe get a personal best.
Jeremy would end up doing a little bit better than just a personal best. He would continue pushing forward, and pretty quickly, he ended up being the fastest rider on the track.
He had the fastest lap of anyone last lap around. There he is.
I'm going to tell you, he's in great shape. He's a big runner.
Aaron Bates would go on to report that he's been working with the Carmichaels out at the goat farm, and then Ricky would articulate that they highlighted this race in particular as a chance to use his exceptional fitness to his advantage later on in the race.
A solid rookie season for the Star Racing Yamaha, Jeremy Martin, but he came from outside the top 10 last weekend in St. Louis and finished a 5th place position, but the first time he has ever raced here in Daytona. He said he's absolutely excited, and he's been training at our very own Ricky Carmichael's place, and your mother being Jeannie said it all boils down to fitness. She advised him, ride your own racetrack. This track is going to get tough. Did you give him any words of advice, Ricky?
Yeah, I sure did, Aaron. I just, you know, I told him, and I just said, you know, this is only the strong survive race, and if you can stay close, you know, just some guys fade, some don't. I mean, the further up the pack you get, the better in shape the guys get, it seems like. So I just said, you know, rely on your fitness a little bit. The guy has incredible amount of fitness.
Jeremy ended up using that exceptional fitness to catch up to the back of Will Hahn and Dean Wilson, who are running second and third.
Oh, wow, Jeremy, he's the guy.
Martin turned to second fastest lap. Last time around, he's starting to close it up also.
With that pass, Hahn will keep the red number plate for next week as the points leader, and he'll actually gain some more points if Martin can get around Wilson.
Yeah, Martin's right there. He's going to go for the pass right this lap, it looks like.
It was hard to tell that Jeremy was closing in on his first ever professional podium. He was closing in quickly on the points leader as well as Dean Wilson, who had already won a race this year, and his worst finish so far this season was a second place. None of that really seemed to matter to Jeremy though. He wanted a podium, but like I said, Dean Wilson hadn't finished worse than second, so he wasn't going to let him have it easy.
Slows him down, takes his momentum away, but he's not going to have the inside line at the next corner. That advantage will go to the 15 of Wilson. Oh, they come together.
Uh-oh. See, now what needs to happen here? Jeremy needs to take a deep breath.
Jeremy must have taken his deep breath pretty quickly because he ended up making the pass back in the very next turn. From there, Jeremy would end up cruising in for his first ever podium. He wouldn't be able to catch Will Hahn, but still a great ride. Unfortunately, things wouldn't go quite as good at the next round in Indianapolis. He got off to another poor start, was working his way back up towards the top 10, and then he ended up DNFing the race. He was able to bounce back pretty strong with a nice top 5 finish in Toronto, but all of that would come crashing down in one of the weirdest season-ending crashes that I've ever seen. He was essentially just cruising the whoops in practice, ended up going down and breaking his wrist, and that was the end of his rookie Supercross season.
That definitely took the wind out of him.
As the pro motocross season kicked off, Jeremy had recovered from his broken wrist. He did not end up needing surgery, and things were starting to look pretty good. He had finished his rookie season last year as a top 10 guy. This was going to be his first full-time motocross season. So the expectations coming in were definitely to go out and get some top 10s, but beyond that, there was still a question mark. Through the first 6 rounds, Jeremy just looked solid. He was able to grab a top 10 finish half of the time, with his best finish being a 6th place finish, which he got at Thunder Valley. And then we got to Redbud. I'm not sure if it was the 4th of July weekend or if he was just starting to figure out his bike, but something clicked for Jeremy that weekend.
Redbud's awesome. I've been coming here as an amateur for the past couple of years, and it's a great place. You know, the track's really cool. The dirt's kind of like riding at my house up at Millville, Minnesota, so lots of lines everywhere, super soft and loamy, and the lines are constantly changing, and I ended up being 6th fastest in practice, so it's a good way to start the day.
As the gate dropped on moto number 1, Jeremy got off to a pretty good top 5 start. He's battling with guys like Roxon and Muskin, and as the race went on, he started to get in a heated battle with Marvin Muskin. Marvin was seen as a race win contender and had been riding good all season, and Jeremy just would not let him by. They battled back and forth, and eventually Marvin finally forced his way by. But as the final minutes of the moto started to close in, so did Jeremy Martin. It was clear that something was a little bit different this weekend. He was riding really well, and he was starting to close back in on Muskin. Ultimately, Muskin would just hold off Jeremy Martin, and Jeremy would come home in 4th in the first moto.
Absolutely awesome race for you. You were so close to that 3rd place. It was a tough one though.
Yeah, it was a good fight. Marvin, you know, he was really we had a great battle. I mean, we honestly battled for probably 20 minutes.
As the gate went down on Moto 2, Jeremy got off to a much better start. He actually essentially tied Zach Osborne for the whole shot. It was great to see Jeremy get a good start, and if you couple that good start with his 4th place in Moto number 1, he was in contention for his first overall podium. NMC and Cirillo was doing his best to keep up with him, but he ended up high-siding. It quickly became evident that Jeremy was going to be battling Marvin Musquin for the overall podium. Marvin was doing his best to keep up with Jeremy and make a pass, and with their current positions, they would actually tie, and the tiebreaker would go to Martin. Roczen and Tomac continued to stretch their lead out. They were going to go 1 and 2, so all eyes were on the battle for 3rd. Marvin was able to keep a good pace going, but eventually he would tip over, and Jeremy finally locked down his first career motocross podium.
Like the last 3-4 years, and it's honestly, it was kind of like pinch me when I was lining up with the pro guys today, so it's pretty cool.
This seemed to mark a turning point in Jeremy's career, where now he was seen as a podium contender, and the question became, when would he get his first race win? Everyone was pretty excited to see what he could do at his home track in Millville, and he did not disappoint in the first moto. He got 2nd right behind Eli Tomac in front of Jason Anderson, but unfortunately he did struggle in Moto 2, bringing home a 7th place moto finish, which would knock him off of the overall podium for the day. But he would bounce back strong the next weekend at Unadilla, getting his best finish of the season, going 2-3 for 2nd overall, and he would finish off the rest of the season with some more solid finishes. He would end up ultimately bringing home 6th place in the championship behind Eli Tomac, Ken Roczen, Marvin Musquin, Blake Baggett, and Zach Osborne, all of which were motocross champions, and a lot of those guys ended up getting premier class motocross championships. So for his first full season, it was pretty successful, and everyone was pretty excited to see how 2014 could go. But I don't think anybody would have predicted what was going to happen next. Going into the 2014 Supercross season, the expectations had definitely risen as Jeremy lined back up for the East Coast division, and unfortunately, those expectations were not met at all. He got off to a rough start and did not qualify for the first 2 main events. He was finally able to scrounge up a 19th place finish at Indianapolis as they headed off to Daytona, where he was on the podium last year, and the hope was maybe that could give him the jump start that he needs to get the results back going in the right direction. Thankfully, Jeremy was able to grab a 6th place finish in Daytona, not nearly as good as the year before, but at this point, he would take it, and he stayed pretty solid throughout the remainder of the season, finishing strong with a 2nd place in East Rutherford and winning the final main event of the season in Las Vegas. It was great to see that Jeremy could get it done in Supercross, and it was great to see him get his first career win. It was also kind of crazy to see how the season could start with a lot of skepticism and criticism, and then with him winning at the end of the Supercross season as we headed outdoors, he was suddenly a title favorite. And sure enough, Jeremy would continue his winning ways, coming out and winning the season opener at Glen Helen.
Lots of contenders in the 250 class. One rider stakes his claim to it early. Jeremy Martin wins his first career moto. Ever overall victory, and he does it in the most convincing manner possible.
This would give Jeremy his first career win in motocross, and he wasn't going to stop there. He went on to win Hangtown the next weekend, get a podium in Thunder Valley, as well as High Point. He did struggle a bit in Muddy Creek, but then he bounced back very nicely, winning again in Redbud, as well as his hometown race at Millville, and finishing off the season with one more overall win in Utah at Miller Motorsports Park, bringing home 5 overall wins on the season, only missing the podium 2 times, and this, sure enough, would hand him his first ever motocross championship.
It's awesome for me, a dream come true, and an awesome feeling for Yamaha too.
As we headed into 2015, the expectations for Jeremy had completely changed. He was seen as a title contender in Supercross and motocross, so as he lined up for the East Coast Championship for the third time, the expectation was to win. Remember, the last time he was on the track racing Supercross, he did win, but at the same time, he also struggled really bad at the start of the Supercross season the year before. He did get off to a pretty solid start to the season in Arlington, Marvin Musquin ended up taking home the win. Justin Bogle, your defending champion, came home in second, and Joey Savacci brought home the final spot on the podium, but Jeremy Martin was right there in fourth behind those three guys. He would do nothing but build off of that momentum the next weekend in Atlanta. He got off to a great start, but opted to go wide in the first turn, which ended up costing him. As the race went on, it became clear that he was moving forward. Pretty soon, Jeremy Martin was battling for the lead. As the race progressed, he would have to hold off a hard-charging Marvin Musquin. But he was able to do just that and take home the win. It was great to see Jeremy back on the top step of the podium so quickly, and he would continue to build off of that momentum at the next couple of rounds. He would bring home another 2 podium finishes, and as they left round number 4 in Daytona, he was only 12 points out of the championship points lead. Then at round number 5, everything went sideways.
You know, we're here at Indy, we're ready to have some fun, and we tried a few different things during the week, so we're going to see if they pay off today.
He did in fact not have fun, and it did not pay off, as he was unable to make it through the heat race after crashing, and then he was making his way through the LCQ, but then there ended up being a red flag, and he ended up going down once again and completely missing the main event. This of course all but destroyed his title hopes, as Marvin Musquin did bring home the win that weekend. He would come back and finish the rest of the season pretty strong with 3 top 5s, but he would still miss the final round in Las Vegas after crashing his mountain bike while on a training ride on Skyline. Luckily, it was just some relatively minor hand injuries, and even after missing a couple of main events, he still finished 3rd in the championship. There was no time to dwell on the potential missed opportunity of the Supercross season, as his focus had to shift to defending his motocross championship. The 2015 Motocross Championship would kick off at Hangtown, and for the first time, we got to see the number 1 plate on Jeremy Martin's bike. Jeremy didn't get the best start, and he did come in 2nd in Moto 1 behind Marvin Musquin, but then in Moto 2, he got a much better start. He quickly worked his way up to the lead, and he started off his championship defense where he left it off last season, with a win. Jeremy would keep that momentum rolling, winning 2 out of the next 3 races, and then he went into a little bit of a mini slump, grabbing a 3rd place finish at High Point and a 4th place at Budds Creek. And when you add those to his 7th place at Glen Helen, he was 11 points behind Marvin Musquin heading into Redbud. Jeremy did race here a lot as an amateur. This is where he got his first career motocross podium, and he won here last year. He knew that if he wanted to defend his title, now was the time to strike back, and that is exactly what he did. Jeremy got off to a pretty good start in Moto number 1, and he found himself behind his teammate Cooper Webb, who had also been giving him some pretty good battles throughout the season. As the moto wound down, he was still on Webb's back wheel, but it was the last lap, and he had not quite made the pass yet.
That's the key. He goes a little bit wide. Oh, that didn't work. And he makes a mistake. Martin's got it.
Jeremy would go on to win the moto, and he would look to carry that momentum into the second moto. In Moto 2, a similar situation was unfolding. Cooper Webb was out front. Jeremy Martin was back in 3rd, battling with Christian Craig for the 2nd place position. Then as they entered the sand rollers, Cooper Webb was down off the side of the track. This messed up Christian Craig, and Jeremy Martin got a 2-for-1 special. Eventually, Jeremy Martin would establish a comfortable lead, and he would cruise in for another moto win, going 1-1 on the day and sweeping Redbud. He would then ride pretty solid through the next 4 rounds, trading blows back and forth with Marvin Musquin as well as some of the other top riders. Ultimately, they left Unadilla only 2 points apart, and then they scored the same amount of points at round number 11 in Utah, going into the final race of the season only separated by 2 points. Going into the final man at Ironman, the pressure was on. Jeremy had to beat Marvin, Marvin had to beat Jeremy. Whoever won would win the championship. Unfortunately for Marvin, that hype and that pressure would be short-lived because his bike would expire in the first moto, and Jeremy Martin would cruise home to a 4th place finish, which wasn't quite enough to secure him the title, but all he really had to do was score a few points in Moto number 2, and that is exactly what he did. He brought it home, and he got his 2nd consecutive motocross championship. Going into 2016, the pressure had risen. We saw Jeremy Martin contend for a Supercross title the year before, and he is now a 2-time motocross champion. He would once again line up for the East Coast Championship. This was now his 4th year racing Supercross, and he would start off with a solid top 5 finish. Then they went back to Daytona. Jeremy got off to a solid 2nd place start behind Malcolm Stewart, and he would end up trailing right behind him for the majority of the race, with Martin Davalos and Justin Hill right behind him. It ended up being a good 4-rider battle all throughout the race. Eventually, Malcolm would make a small bobble towards the end of the race. Jeremy would get by and end up taking home his first career Supercross win. The rest of the Supercross season had its ups, some downs. He did get another win in St. Louis, and he was also a points leader for a short period of time. He ended up having a relatively solid season, finishing 3rd in the championship behind Malcolm Stewart and Aaron Plessinger. Going into the great outdoors, Jeremy Martin was trying to win his 3rd championship in a row. This is something that very few people have ever done, even in the 250 class. He did get off to a bit of a rough start with a 5th place at round number 1, but he bounced back strong with 2 second-place finishes and got himself somewhat back into the title contention. The season really started to come off the rails though with the 9th place at High Point, and he was not even able to get any podiums in the next couple of rounds. Even at Redbud, he was only able to bring home a 4th place. He did manage to win his home race at Millville, but unfortunately, the very next weekend, he went down at Washougal, got hit by Adam Cianciarulo, and ended up breaking some ribs, and that was the end of that championship. Going into 2017, Jeremy Martin would make a large change by switching to the Geico Honda team. On top of that, as the riders lined up for the Supercross season, he would enter the West Coast Championship for the first time of his career. Unfortunately, his Supercross season would get off to a bit of an underwhelming start with a 6th place finish at Anaheim 1. He would then have one of the gnarliest looking crashes that we've ever seen in San Diego during practice, but he would still manage to bring home a 7th, then another top 10 when the series returned to Anaheim. Then at round 4, he ended up getting hit by Tyler Bauer's bike and got a concussion. That caused him to miss round 4 and 5. He did return and grab a 6th place finish in Arlington, and then he came to Daytona on a 450. Jeremy got the rare opportunity to fill in for Ken Roczen, and he took full advantage, taking the whole shot and leading a good majority of the race while being chased down by Eli Tomac. Eventually, Eli would make his way around Jeremy Martin, and he would finish up with a solid 2nd place finish. This would bring the end to his Supercross season, but it was great to see him do so good on a 450. As Jeremy lined up to race motocross for the Geico Honda team for the first time, the hopes were high, but those hopes would soon be dashed when he got an 11th at Hangtown at the season opener. He did bounce back strong, getting a couple of podiums at the next couple of rounds, and then he finally got his first win for the team at High Point. He continued having up and down results all throughout the season, getting one more win at Unadilla, but he would eventually end up losing the title to Zach Osborne and finishing 2nd. Overall, it wasn't an incredible season, it wasn't a bad season. He was definitely solid and got the team some wins, so there was a good bit of optimism and excitement for 2018. Little did Jeremy know, everything was about to change. Starting off the 2018 Supercross season, he would race the first 3 rounds for Factory Honda while pitting out of the Geico truck, and he was essentially teammates with Ken Roczen and Cole Seeley. He finished all 3 of those rounds right around 10th place, and then he moved to the East Coast to start his 250 season. He actually had a really strong Supercross season, bringing home a ton of top 5 finishes, 4 podiums, a win at the East-West Showdown at Indianapolis, as well as his hometown race in Minneapolis, and he would end up finishing behind Zach Osborne once again, 21 points down, and finishing 3rd in the championship. Going into the 2018 motocross season, the hopes were high that he would be a championship contender once again. And those hopes were met at Hangtown. He ended up having a great battle with defending champion Zach Osborne. While he didn't end up winning the overall, he did bring home a solid 2nd place finish, backed that up with a 3rd place at Glen Helen, and then he won Thunder Valley. He would leave the 3rd round of the series with an 8-point lead over Aaron Plessinger and 24 points ahead of Zach Osborne. Unfortunately, at the next round in High Point, he would DNF the 2nd moto, and he would be down 20 points to Aaron Plessinger, but he came back strong at Muddy Creek, winning moto number 1. Then in moto number 2, he did not get off to nearly as good of a start, and as he was trying to work his way up through the field, he would end up unfortunately tangling with Justin Cooper, and what happened next would change the course of his career forever.
Man, it was gnarly. I was able to win the first moto, and then moto 2, we put a new clutch in, and the clutch wasn't really that dialed in for the start. and I didn't get off the gate that well, and it was a racing incident. Obviously Justin Cooper and I collided, and I saw a hole, and sometimes that's all you need, like in the sport, like you risk it, right? And we came together, and yeah, it was not good.
The crash was absolutely gnarly. He ended up getting a burst fracture in his L1 vertebrae. Jeremy went in for surgery at Bristol, not too far from the track.
Were you riding good?
Oh, the best. I'm like, dude, sign me up.
Did a 5 vertebrae fusion there in Tennessee. I kept breaking out in these like sweats and then these gnarly chills. I was like, what the heck's going on? Like we didn't know. So I took a jet back to Rochester, Minnesota, and then they found out, and then like basically at that point I had an infection and like pus was coming out of my back, and I was like septic at that point.
No.
So then they kind of like reopened me back up, washed me out, like did everything, and then they put a PICC line in, and I was administering antibiotics for like 6 weeks every day, and I wanted a second opinion, so I flew out to the Stedman Clinic in Colorado.
Yep.
And then they were like, we got x-rays and everything, and they sat me down in the room, and I was like, I had that weird gut feeling that things weren't good. So here's the bad news. We got to redo everything. And I was like, what? Like, I'm supposed to be riding soon. And yeah, we went in and redid everything, and there was an infection in there again, and got it right. And then I healed right away, and then I was back on right away.
Hey everyone, it's J-Mart here. Just a quick little update. We had surgery yesterday. Was under the gun for about 4 hours. And really successful surgery. The surgeon was super happy. Took all the hardware out, put new hardware in. It's not as long, so I should have some more mobility on the top and bottom of the spine. And it should heal 100% this time, and looking forward to the recovery process and getting back out there and giving her the beans on that Geico Honda.
Around the time that Jeremy was recovering from his second surgery, Geico Honda extended him another 2 years through the year 2021. While in the recovery process of his second surgery, he ended up getting a job at Vaith's Sled and Cycle Company. He just wanted something to help pass the time, and he was also pretty frustrated with his situation. By the time Pro Motocross came back to his home race at Spring Creek the following year, he still had not even been able to get back on the bike yet. At the very end of the season, Jeremy was able to return and race the Monster Energy Cup, where he would bring home a solid 8th place finish. He actually got a couple of 6th place finishes in 2 of the mains, but then struggled in the 3rd one, which brought him that 8th place overall. In 2020, Jeremy would return to full-time racing at the East Coast Supercross Series, and he would kick things off right with a podium in Tampa. He would then finish off the rest of his season rock solid, finishing either 3rd or 4th, other than Atlanta, where he had some struggles. And it was at this point that COVID had just hit. They were doing the Salt Lake City rounds when him and the team made a controversial decision to go ahead and sit out the remainder of the season. He had already scored 105 out of the 135 available points as far as the point out rule goes. And this would have been his 4th year pointing out, which would mean he would be removed from the 250 class in the following year. Given the fact that he was not in title contention and he had a contract with the team for 2021, they went ahead and skipped the rest of Supercross and shifted their focus to motocross. Going into the great outdoors, Jeremy was starting to return to his full form, and he was ready to go after his 3rd motocross title. Interestingly, since this was still a COVID year, the motocross schedule had been abbreviated and changed. It would now be raced as a 9-round series at 7 different tracks. Whatever the case may be, Jeremy came out and got a podium at the first round, which was at Loretta Lynn's, and it began to become clear that he was going to be locked in a heated battle with the reigning Supercross champion Dylan Ferrandis.
I had a gnarly summer with Dylan that year. Man, that dude was gnarly. God.
He was a beast that year, right? He was a beast,
man. Yeah. I just remember I respected him, and he was pretty vocal. He would say some stuff and whatever, but I just remember being in a battle with him, and he was a gnarly dude, man. That dude he was on that year, and like I was all in too. Yeah, he was on for sure, and I respect our battles, and that dude kept me up at night and thinking, how the heck am I gonna beat this cat?
If figuring out how to beat Dylan was keeping Jeremy up at night, he must have stayed up all week after round number 1, because not only did he go on to win the second Loretta Lynn's round, but then he also came back to win at Ironman, as well as the first Redbud round. And going into the 5th round of the championship, he had a 12-point lead over Dylan. Unfortunately, those would be the only 3 wins of the season for Jeremy, as he would go 4-2, 3-3-2 to finish off the season strong, but not strong enough. He would end up finishing second behind Dylan with 377 points, losing the championship by just 13 points. As much as I'm sure that was a hard pill to swallow, on top of that, the Geico Honda team ended up closing shop after the 2020 season, and even though Jeremy Martin had a contract for the next season, none of that really mattered because that team didn't exist anymore. Going into 2021, Jeremy Martin needed a ride, and he would rejoin with the Star Yamaha team, the same team that he started his career on. It was pretty exciting to see him back with another factory team, and everyone was curious to see what he could do in Supercross. The country was still trying to figure out how to navigate COVID, and the Supercross schedule was directly affected by this. Jeremy technically signed up for the West Coast, which meant we would see his Star Yamaha debut at Orlando 2, but unfortunately his debut was short-lived as he ended up crashing and dislocating his shoulder, and since this was actually the 8th round of the Supercross series, this would essentially end his Supercross season before he could even complete the first round. Going into the motocross season, the focus for Jeremy was once again to try to get his 3rd motocross title. He would get off to a pretty good start at Fox Raceway, trading moto wins with Jet Lawrence and bringing home a 2nd place overall finish. He would then go on to win Moto 1 at Thunder Valley, but then in Moto number 2, he ended up going down, injuring his wrist and breaking some fingers. This would set him back for the next few rounds. He got an 8th overall at Thunder Valley. He was able to manage a 5th at Redbud, but then at Southwick he could only manage a 13th. Keep in mind this whole time he was racing with broken fingers, and then the season headed to his home track in Millville. Jeremy was starting to heal up from that injury that he sustained at Thunder Valley, so between that and the hometown energy, he was able to bring home his first overall win of the season. He then went on a bit of a streak, winning at Washougal, bringing home another podium at Unadilla, and winning again at Budds Creek. Coming into the Millville race, he was 8th in the points, 79 points down to points leader Jet Lawrence, and after his little hot streak, he had leapfrogged all the way up to 3rd in the championship and was only 57 points behind Jet Lawrence. Unfortunately, all that momentum would come crashing down at the next round. In Moto number 1 at Ironman, he ended up going down, breaking his wrist and ending his season. During the offseason, it was announced that Star Yamaha had re-signed Jeremy Martin for the 2022 season. He would once again line up for the East Coast Series, and this year, the East Coast kicked off at his home race in Minnesota. Jeremy got off to a solid start with a 4th place finish, and then he backed that up with a podium getting 2nd at Arlington, and as he was preparing to head to one of his best tracks in Daytona, he ended up having a practice crash, injuring his shoulder once again, and ultimately, this would end up completely ending his season. Now, I do feel like there's a little bit more that went on here, and it did seem like there was some bad blood as he exited the team, but I don't want to speculate too much. What we know for sure is that Jeremy needed a new team as he headed into 2023. New season, new team. Jeremy was once again on a Yamaha, but this time he was on Club MX Yamaha. He would once again line up for the East Coast Supercross Series, and right out of the gate, he would get a couple of top 5 finishes for the team, and he would carry that kind of momentum all the way up until round 7, where he ended up going down in Atlanta. He collapsed his lung and had to miss the next round in East Rutherford. He would then come back and finish off the series strong, and even though he missed one round and had a couple of poor finishes, he still managed a 6th place finish in the championship. As the series headed outdoors to Fox Raceway, everyone was pretty excited to see what Jeremy could do on the Club MX Yamaha, given that he was a 2-time motocross champion. This was the first time that Jeremy would ever be racing motocross on a non-factory motorcycle, And whether that was a huge factor or not, I'm not sure, but what I can tell you is that he came out in the season opener and he went 16-19 in the motos for 17th overall. He did manage a 13th in Moto number 1 at the second round in Hangtown, but unfortunately in Moto 2 he went down and broke his wrist once again. This would bring the first year of his 3-year deal with the club team to a premature end. Going into 2024, Jeremy would once again line up for the East Coast Supercross Series. This year, the series was kicking off in Detroit. Unfortunately, Jeremy couldn't even get past the heat race. As he was going through the whoop section, he got kicked off the bike, turned around backwards, and head slapped right into a whoop. This ended up giving Jeremy a gnarly concussion and knocking him out for the next few rounds. He did come back for a few races and he was even able to grab a top 5 in Birmingham, but he ended up having another practice crash shortly after that, and this time he was unconscious for around 6 minutes. He had severe head trauma and things were not looking good for Jeremy.
Really, like after the club deal went down, like, I mean, he was not in a good spot mentally. Like he couldn't even drive down the road without getting nausea. He'd have to pull over and like breathe, close his eyes, like literally couldn't drive down the road. The concussion in Detroit, where he was knocked out for a little bit in the heat race. And then he was on outdoors like maybe a month later and he crashed again. He was out for 6 minutes. And after that one, that's when he came back to Minnesota, basically packed his bags up from club, came back, and like he was not well for like 2 months after that.
I was knocked out in Detroit for about a minute. And then I resumed, and then I tore my thumb. And then I was dealing with the injury of, this as well.
So like, what happened there?
So this was from 2023 Hangtown, the crash off the start.
Yeah.
And I dislocated the wrist and the elbow. The elbow went back in, but I got compartment syndrome. I could barely get my fingers to move again. And then I tore my thumb after in Detroit.
Is that UTC joint that everyone's doing lately?
Yeah, and I didn't get it fixed. And then I ended up going down again at club, and I was out for 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I was not good for a while. Like, I was bad. Like, I was, double vision, wanting to puke, like sleeping all the time. And the doc goes, if you hit your head one more time, you're done.
So now that we've established all of that context, imagine how Jeremy felt when he got the call, hey, Jeremy, come over here, ride the bike. And one thing led to another, and he was offered a 3-race deal to go out and race pro motocross in 2025. Going into the 2025 season, it was so cool to see Jeremy lining up once again. At the season opener, unfortunately, he was not able to get a good start in either moto, but he did push his way back up through the field, getting some points in each moto. Then at round number 2 at Hangtown, he was looking a little bit better in Moto 1, when unfortunately he ended up crashing out and he did not start in the second moto. After his crash, he was pretty banged up, so he opted to sit out of the next round in Thunder Valley and instead shift his focus to his hometown race at Millville. So as round number 7 at Millville finally rolled around, we got to see Jeremy Martin line up once again. The day started off with some pretty good qualifying times, and this definitely started to get our hopes up a little bit, but that wouldn't be nearly as cool as what was coming next.
Yeah, man, we're ready to go. We're hosting this weekend. We got like 6 or 9 people here for the last send-off, and we're ready to have a good day today.
I like the fireballs right here too.
Just in case.
Hey, all I can tell you is just do it, be in the moment, have some fun, and just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I don't know anybody anything at this point,
As the 250s lined up for moto number 1, most people's eyes were turned to Jeremy. As the gate dropped, so did most people's jaws as he ended up pulling a fat hole shot and getting the early lead. Eventually, he would be passed by Seth Hamaker, as well as caught by his teammate Hayden Deegan, and then passed by Joe Shimoda later in the race. Ultimately, Hamaker ended up having his own issues, and Jeremy was able to hang tough, not allowing anybody else to catch or pass him, which gave him a podium in moto number 1.
Little bro can still do it.
Yeah.
Seeing Jeremy get a great start and finish on the podium was awesome, but the question remained, could he do it again in Moto 2? Personally, I can tell you that I was absolutely locked on to his gate, and when the gate dropped, my stomach dropped because he did not get a good jump. Now I'm not sure exactly what happened after that, but he absolutely flew down the start straight and got another hole shot, but this time things would be different. It would seem that maybe Jeremy got a little bit more confidence from the last race, but whatever the reason may be, he ended up holding on to the lead quite a bit longer, even with Joe Shimoda trying his best to chase him down. Eventually, Joe would work his way around, but it was not nearly as easy for him as it was in Moto 1. On top of that, Jeremy was hanging tough and still on his back wheel. Then as things seemed to be settling in out of nowhere, Joe goes over the turn, turns out he had lost his rear brake, and with about half of the race already done, Jeremy Martin was once again in the lead. Series points leader and teammate Hayden Deegan was doing his best to chase him down, and he was actually starting to creep up on him. It would seem that all of Jeremy's grit and determination that he developed over the years would end up kicking in though, because he went to another gear and began to pull away. He really had nothing to lose. He was in his last moto at his last race in front of his hometown crowd. It was clear that Jeremy's intentions were to try to win the race, and win the race he did.
Got a great line, picking up the speed. Prado now about to come under attack right now. Leading that might be second. Yeah, that is 8 seconds going after Prado right now.
Where they come from, Phil?
Thank you for letting me come race your bike.
Great brother.
Thank you for letting me race your bike at Roosevelt.
Washougal next weekend? No?
I knew I still had it, right? But like, when the injuries stack up and things aren't going your way, no matter how hard you try, you have doubt. Like, it's so hard, but my arm it's gotten better and better. Even this year, it's gotten better as time's gone on. And like, I got fit, and I got my mind in a better spot. I got my corners back from good settings, and it just like, you know what I mean? To have a day like that, it's like I wasn't that up. You know, that's nice. It's not just a home track, but like, these are the best guys in the world, and I was still able to do it.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but Millville 2025 has to go down as one of the greatest moments in motocross history. Seeing what Jeremy was able to do and the way he was able to write the ending to his story was absolutely incredible, and I love to see it. Go on ahead and enjoy your donuts, Jeremy. You deserve it and so much more. It was really great to see something go your way, and the fact that you're able to go out on top was even better. If you guys made it this far into the video, that means you probably enjoyed it. So feel free to check out our other story videos that we have. We have an Austin Faulkner video, Jason Lawrence, Trey Kennard, Ryan Villapoto, and even one about James Stewart. Believe it or not, a lot of time and effort goes into making these videos. So if you guys really did enjoy the video, make sure you hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and if you have not already, I would also really appreciate it if you subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.